If your ink's too slow and your nib won't flow, here's one of the places that you can go. Larry is here to see you through with Mr. Announcer and Cubby too. It's Larry's Fountain Pen Reviews.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to my jungle of madness, where everything happens, where everything's exciting, and even Stan smiles.
Hello, everyone.
Hello there.
Hi,
Hello.
hey, Stan, can you win a pen case?
I didn't get any.
Was I supposed to? Wait a minute, you did win it, right?
No.
No.
I don't remember.
Oh, no, I lost my mind. Forget you won 2 pens. So. Yeah. That's a man that won 2. First time ever. No one has ever done that. Wow. Oh, Stan. Good. All right. So anyway, we're going to get on with the show. This is it. And Mr. Announcer, do the honors and welcome him in.
We are very glad to have Abdiel Acosta with us this day. He's an excellent, totally excellent artist, and a special guest artist will make an appearance also.
So, with that said, take it away, sir. It's all yours.
Hi, everybody. Was that me? Hi, everybody. Okay. Thank you. Kind of new at this. Really excited to be here with all of you. I'm pretty sure you saw some of my work already on the other video. If I wanted to open it up, if you guys have any questions, you want me to go over a little bit of the work, or do you want to have some questions? You guys let me know.
Okay. Why don't you tell them your journey, how you got started and all this? Okay.
I've always been interested in art. I guess my fountain pen journey started as an artist in a way. As a child, I was drawn to drawing and painting. I was fortunate enough being here in South Florida to have a teacher see that talent early on in the elementary level. And I went into the magnet programs that we have down here in Miami. From there, I went to Maryland Institute, College of Art in Baltimore, Maryland. And as I was working with ink washes, I kind of got hooked into fountain pens. It started mainly with Nathan, one of Nathan's, Nathan from Noodler's Inks video on one of his brush pens. And just looking to see mainly how to look for thinner tools for line variation. That's how I started going into fountain pens. Excuse me a minute. Abdiel, you want to open the door for me, Abdiel? Sure. Okay, thank you. Okay. That's my son. You'll meet him a little bit later in the show. Yeah, I started mainly looking into really the extra fine Japanese pens. Then I got into vintage, and I started collecting also just weird assortment of different nibs and anything that had like a different type of variation of line and things like that. Mainly now, all my pieces, I start them out in pencil. I come in with fountain pens, and I'm really just exploring now to work with inks, and I want to work with different types of inks, fountain pen inks, to expand on what I'm doing with the pieces.
So there's a picture you're going to show that you did with a fountain pen, right?
Yes. Let me. You want me to share the screen and show you a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let them see what you did and tell them what fountain pen it was.
Okay. This is on paper. I started it. It was a Coeco Sport extra fine, using permanent ink and also a little bit of Noodler's Earl, that soft gray. I also came in with a little bit of white to bring in some of those highlights. Now, the white I did with a dip pen. I also work with brush pens, Japanese brush pens, which brought in some of the thicker lines in here that you see. My watercolors have also start out with dip pens, like the Gator here that you see here, where I do a lot of the cross hatching and the line work. Once it's dry, then I come in with watercolors.
That's amazing.
It is.
Thank you. I also work with wood blocks or linoleum, and these are prints. These are prints that are hand colored. I start them out as a sketch with the fountain pen. Then in this particular piece here with the golden fish, which is the title, I actually used a paper from a magazine, actually from a discarded book, which is an alphabet, a tablet on different alphabets. So I print on top of that, and then I add found materials like the ruler down here and some ink washes down here that you see. Now my traditional work, here we go. Let me show you a little bit of it. It's right here. And the way these pieces happen, it's a paper that's treated. I come in and I ink it several times with ink, usually a permanent ink. In this case here, in this one, I used India ink. I also have a pen, which is the fountain pen that does allow me to have India ink. It was a Kickstarter way back. It's from Spain, and it has a little reservoir of water. I forget. It keeps the nib moist enough so that that ink doesn't cause any type of, the India ink is notorious with fountain pens. But with this pen, I haven't had any trouble keeping the ink in there for a period of time. So what I do here is I ink the surface a couple of times, and then I come in with an X-Acto blade. And the X-Acto blade gives me, if it's a very fine lines, kind of like an etching, but you get an original drawing. So some of the areas in here where, let me see if I can zoom in for you guys a little bit. That way you can see. Let me see. Even down here where it's dark, there are very, very fine lines, but that happens due to just a very fine blade. Let me reset that. Okay. And I'm going to open the floor if you guys want to have some questions, or is there a particular piece that you want to see?
I was wondering, do you start with any photographs? Do you take any photographs first, or is this all from memory?
I do use references. Yes, I take photographs, and the way I start, I'll start it with the photographs, and I'll start the drawings first. Mainly light sketches and pencil. I'll come in with a pen and finalize, like I like to say, kind of like the characters or the actors, place them where I want them. Once I have the composition set and ready to go, then I'll transfer that. I'll start the ink washes and things like that, and then transfer that onto, and then start with the X-Acto.
Wow.
Does that help, Dan?
Yeah, amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, your composition is just so perfect. The different camera angles that you have on the animals, super great proportion on the animals, and just even the natural spacing of the scales on the turtle's neck. It's just an incredible amount of detail.
Yeah, thank you. The medium lends itself to that in the sense, the X-Acto, you know, you could really have very thin lines. And it was during that search for those lines and that led me on to the fountain pens. I've been collecting now for, well, my son wasn't born yet, about 10 to 11 years. It started there, and as we all know, you know, you kind of start exploring then the vintage world and the different types of nibs, and you just fall down that rabbit hole, you know, as we all have.
If you don't mind, why don't you show them that octopus?
Okay, the octopus, sure.
Yeah, are you ready? Let's go. Octopus is gone.
I have several ones here. There's this one that's an ink wash, you know, and this is what lurks beneath. And it's one of the few times where I have sort of like people, and you have here like this person. These were pieces that I was doing kind of like inner struggle or, you know, torment in a way. And then I have this piece, which is, I brought this piece in because this is with crayon. What I do here is I create a wax fill with the crayon, similar to what you would have done when you were in elementary school, where you took the crayon wax and then you came in and you scratched with a tool. This is the same thing, except that I put an acrylic epoxy on it so that the wax won't melt on you. Here in Miami, I've had instances where I left a piece in the car without having the piece finished yet, and it turned Jackson Pollock on me.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Now there's another one. How about that mean-looking turtle you have?
The other turtles, yes. The turtles, the octopus are themes that I revisit over and over again. Here's one of those turtles.
Oh, beautiful. Wow.
With sort of like it's a mythological creature that has an island on its back. I just finished a up close piece. You'll see it on my Etsy. And on my Etsy is Abdiel Acosta art altogether. So you can see more of my work there. And Instagram is also the same, Abdiel Acosta art. And I have a smaller one that I just finished for the fairs. I do art fairs, and it's just basically just the focus on the face of the turtle. I don't have it in the slide because I thought I was doing way too much work and it would get too lengthy, you know.
Now, have you mentioned, or did I mention anything about the rooster? What's the reason you have a rooster in your picture?
The rooster comes, yeah. The rooster identifies with my childhood. I grew up in Colón Matanzas in Cuba. I came to the States at the age of 5 through the Mario boat lift in 1980. And I have a piece here that I sort of did in homage to my father. My father left everything behind in Cuba, not just his whole family, but anything else he had to bring us to the States, me. And we were very fortunate at the time that we all left together. During that time, they would separate families. So the 3 roosters represent myself and my 2 older brothers who were teenagers at the time. And this is sort of a little homage to him called the Guajiro, which is what we called the farmers. My father was a farmer. He had a little farm in Cuba, and that's where the rooster sort of plays.
Do you ever have you had many comments about that particular picture?
Yeah, if I've had any comments about it, yes. Down here, you know, we have a large Cuban population, and mainly when, you know, down here people kind of put 1 and 1 together. you know, and they see the significance of it. I do work in a surreal way. So you see sort of these penguins flying up here, you know, and there's a little hummingbird that's kind of whispering to him. I do have that surreal, or, you know, play with it. The rooster shows up again here. This is a piece I did called Interrupted Conversation. And this is on your traditional scratchboard. You can go to an art store and you can buy a piece of paper that already has been inked. They're called Scratchboard Paper. And then you just come in with any type of sharp tool and you work, you work the area. This was from a scene in, when I visited North Carolina. And of course, people tell me, well, you know, the rooster wasn't really, that was my, the artist, you know, my liberties that artists take, right? Where I place the rooster on the deer, and then you have this hummingbird up here. So there's sort of like this play on that we come across this scene, and the deer's looking at us as the rooster is kind of having this conversation with the hummingbird. So that's where the title comes from.
Curious, you mentioned trying some dip pen nibs. What is the finest nib you tried? Just curious. Do you recall?
On dip pens, I've had the what did you say? Sorry.
What dip pen nibs? In other words, what brands and what type? Do you remember?
The Crow. The Crow. Is it the Crow's?
Crow Quill.
Crow Quill has been very good for me. I've tried that. There's some other dip pens that I tried, but the Crow's has for me, a very sharp, which I love. Now I'll also use thicker nibs for other things. You know, I have some. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say what you need to look at is mapping pens. They sometimes come in crow quill form. Those are the cylindrical quills, but I put into the chat section an image of two mapping pens from Esterbrook, a 355 and a 356. They're like needle sharp. The thing is, they don't hold much ink, but they allow these incredibly fine hairlines. Might be worth looking into if you still need that kind of approach. But these are vintage nibs, but you can still find them on eBay. And I think they work very nice, because I used to use them for very small copper plate script, because as you reduce the size of your letters, the lines tend to get thicker. So I would use those things in its place. But Esterbrook 355, and actually 354 as well, it's even finer. But they're real tiny, and they're meant for I guess they call them mapping nibs for a reason. They're used for map makers, I guess. But yeah, beautiful work, by the way. I really like your work. It's wonderful.
Thank you. I'm definitely going to look at it, because I'm always in the search, you know, just to play around with something different. That's part of the fun. But I appreciate that. Thank you. So mapping nibs. Yeah,
and especially in Esterbrook 354, 355, and even 356 nibs.
I do have some Esterbrook's, some vintage ones, and I will be looking for those. Thank you.
Yeah. The problem is with some of these ones that people use for shaded script, you know, the more famous ones, they can be ridiculously expensive. But now you're talking about the 357 and 358s. That was I lived in that world for many years. So.
It's appreciated. Thank you.
Now, Doc, just a real question for you, since you're the calligraphy guy on here. On the rooster, can you do any of that calligraphy on that rooster he had?
I need to see it again.
Oh, I'll put it up again. The rooster?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
What are you asking me about, Larry?
You can do the head part of the.
No, I don't do drawings like that, Larry. I mean, I've never attempted it, and you know, this is high level stuff. I'm more I write script lettering, and I do drawings, but in a really fundamental form of flourishing, you know, very line drawing type stuff. This is not This is not the kind of stuff I would attempt to do. You know, I drew in the past. I have some experience drawing, but to be able to just sit there and duplicate that takes knowledge of how to get those. It's basically playing with light in many respects, right? You know, darks and lights and stuff like that. So, no, that's not something that would be in my wheelhouse, so to speak.
Yeah, well, the reason why I did mention that was, first of all, I wasn't meaning the whole picture. I was meaning just the top part of the rooster, because I don't know, it reminds me of calligraphy on the very tip tops. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yeah, I guess, but it's something very, very different than I would do. And each one of those little, you know, little finger things, they all have different levels of line variation in them. Yeah, so.
Okay. Anybody else? Didn't you have another one? We're missing one. What was the other one?
What was the subject? Remember?
Was it the bird?
The spoonbill?
Yeah, what is that one?
Show the colored spoonbill.
Oh, the watercolor spoonbill. This one.
Yes.
Yeah,
this
it
one?
is, yeah.
Yeah. Here, what I did, I worked again with a fountain pen for what you see, and also a brush pen for the darker areas. Then I came in with watercolor. I did a little bit of color pencil. This here around it is a nautical chart. I'm a teacher, and one of my co-workers, her husband worked with the oceanography. They were throwing out all these great nautical charts, and she gave me a couple of them. I go, I could use them. You know, artists are always looking for things, and that's where you see some of these nautical charts. Because you know, something I played always around in my work is about placement, and where I think all of us, we have this interesting story of where we came from or how we got to where we are. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you'll see maps and nautical charts on my work. Okay. I did come in also with a little bit of white ink that you'll see play here. So this part was with a dip pen, because I use, let me see, you see here, to get these really fine little lines here. This little drawing is about 9 by 6 inches, somewhere around there. They're small, they're not big. And then I rework it with a little bit of color pencil as well.
Do you find it's harder to work in the smaller sizes than in the larger sizes, or vice versa?
The smaller sizes, I've worked bigger. I have here an example of an oil piece, if you want to see, which is 5 feet by 4 feet. And I was putting it up.
This very large, yeah.
Yeah, and this is oil on canvas.
Uh-huh.
It's a different animal. I don't know. I love both. The intimacy of the smaller pieces, I can transport them easier. It's easier to transport. It's easier to take to shows. This piece, I have a funny story. I just did a show about less than a month ago down here, and I had to rent a truck just for this piece, because I used to have an old Honda Element. I loved my little Element because I could put everything in there. This piece fit everything, because the seats in the back are stackable. You know, you unhook them and you put them against the wall, and you would throw everything in there. So I rented a U-Haul truck, and I was setting up for the last day of the show, and I went into a private parking that had 3 stories, and I saw other trucks in there. Told me I was fine. And I'm talking about a small van. It's not the big trucks, you know, the smaller U-Haul vans. Mm-hmm. And as I'm going up one of the inclines, you know, scared out of my mind, I made it through. I go, okay, it's all a piece of cake now. Let's go down. As I'm going down, I hear this slam, and I hooked to something. And part of the front bump, the top bumper, just I lost it. Luckily, I had insured it, and you know, I mean, my heart sank because I go, okay, there goes whatever I made on the show if I made anything. You know, it all worked out at the end. It all worked out. But it's a little funny story about carrying big pieces. You know, when you carry big pieces, it's a different animal. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah,
You know, with your story.
yeah. Thank
And
you.
the name of the piece being Struggle from Within really applies there too.
Ironically, right? Yeah. But this is just a little example of my oils. I do oils. I was trained when I went to school. I went in as a painting major at Maryland Institute, and much later on, I went back to school because I'm a teacher. I'm an art teacher here in the public school system, and I did a master's in teaching and art also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you went to your first art show, did you talk about pens right then? And if you did, how well were you accepted? Here's the guy bringing in art to a pen show. How did that go?
Well, I do talk about the process, and I talk about most people, when you tell them fountain pens, they're kind of like, and then you got to describe. The process is also different. My work, you know, with the, so I feel that when you talk to people and you let them in a little bit on your process, it helps in the sense that now people get a different appreciation for the work and the amount of time and the tools that you use. So I think people respond nicely to that, and just the fact of you know, a tool that has such a history, and some people don't even think that, you know, oh, what fountain pen? What is a fountain pen? And oh, okay, some people can relate. Some people, younger audience, I mean, is different. I know when I'm teaching, I make the mistake sometimes telling the kids, hey, remember CDs? And they're like, what is a CD? Or, you know, let's not even go back to 8-track or vinyl, you know, but I remember 8 tracks when I came to the country.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
but you know, kids are like, "What's a CD?" And you gotta realize kids are not, you know.
Speaking of kids, is the little shark artist available?
We want the shark artist.
Oh, the shark, Abdiel. Let me bring him in. I want to introduce my son, Abdiel.
Here's something that everybody needs to
He was having lunch. He was having lunch, but we're gonna bring him in. Bring his.
He's 8 years old.
Yeah, yeah. I always try to get him involved in everything I do. You know, I really encourage him, and I'm fortunate enough to have him as a student. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. He's my student at the school where I teach. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, guys.
He's really excited to be on Zoom with you guys. Bring your shark, your megalodon. I put it up on. And he also, I teach an after-school program where I do clay and ceramics, which is something new that I'm learning.
Just kidding.
Wahoo! Excellent. Look at that.
Oh, that's so pretty.
Good job. Wow.
Here, I'm holding you.
So I
Tell them a little bit of what you did.
So this, I was 8. I was, how old was I?
Less than like a year ago you did this. Or
I was 7 when I made this, and this goes, I was like 7 years old.
Oh.
I made, so do you know why there's like a tough, like a rough, dark area here?
Here we go.
Explain.
Wow.
So the reason why is because I made a mistake while making the waves around the megalodon shark. Also, I made a mistake.
Megalodon.
There was a little X there.
Those teeth look so sharp.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So I made a mistake here, but my dad said mistakes happen, but you could always fix them in art.
Yeah. Bob Ross rule, you know, mistakes.
How sweet.
Very nice.
So I noticed, hey, why don't we make it into a wave, and my dad here was like,
Wow, impressive.
Thank you. Here, thank you. Say thanks.
"Thank
Great
you,
job,
Thank you.
And
buddy. Excellent.
So that's gonna be my apprentice, Shirley. I tell him he's gotta start you know, working with me soon.
Oh, he's adorable.
Thank you guys.
So what is your next upcoming project you're gonna be working on in art pictures?
The next thing I'm working on is I want to go into the Miami Pen Show in July. It's happening here in July. Most of the shows that I'm doing are local now. I haven't gone out outside of South Florida. With the schedule, you know, it's partly my schedule with school and everything else. So I try to keep it local for now.
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to writing with fountain pens, what fountain pens do you tend to favor? What do you like? Which preference in pens?
When it comes to writing, I do like Flex, and I have some vintage Flex. I just got not too long ago a little vacuumatic, and this one doesn't have a lot of flex, but it's just super smooth, Parker, you know, and it's just a joy, you know. It's a joy when you have something in your hand that it just flows, you know what I mean, and you get lost in it. It makes you want to write, it makes you want to draw, and this was very nice, actually. I got another Parker that I have to fix. It's another Parker here, but when I bought this, the times are, so I got to get that one fixed, and it's beyond my my capabilities. Well, you know.
Any modern pens?
Modern pens, there's I have a Pilot Falcon soft fine, which was ironically one of my first pens. When I started looking into pens, I got this at Goulet, and you know, love it. Love working with it. It has that little bit of a give to it, you know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah. And I just I'm waiting in the mail for an Eclipse, a vintage Eclipse that had like a little bit of softness to it that I can't wait to see how I could work with it. It's coming in the mail.
Did you mention before that you were actually using India ink in some fountain pens?
Yes, yes. I could bring one out to you. Do you mind if I get it in a second? Just a second. Yeah, let me grab that. When I travel, I usually travel with one of these, and this is where I keep most of my. But there was it's called Indie Pen, I believe. Let me show you. I know it's from Spain. Oh, it's not here. Oh, I don't have it here. I mean, 1 minute. I apologize. This is the one pen that I'm not worried about putting India ink in.
Okay.
And what it has right here, let me see. You see right there, that little, there's a little reserve right there of water. Now, I did have, oh, it's, okay, it's unscrewing now. This unscrews. And you could feel it. The one problem I had with it, and I don't know if it's that it was one of the few that were from the Kickstarter, was that I had to, this piece here, whatever they used to put it together, came, either the adhesive or I don't know, came apart. So I had to use, I went in and used like one of those dry well compounds,
Mm-hmm.
because it had separated and then it was drying out on me. But I did that and I was able to secure it. But this works great. This is the, is it Indie Pen? I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with it.
No, I'm not.
You know,
Does the nib and feed area disassemble for cleaning?
this is the, you know, I've never, that's a good question. I haven't, since I've inked it, I haven't cleaned it. I could try.
No,
Still,
don't. I would not. But so is the Indie ink you're using, is that a permanent ink?
yes, that's a permanent ink.
It's
Yeah,
amazing.
I mean,
You don't have any trouble in that pen with it. Amazing. Most Indie inks, as you know, are carbon-based pigments, right? And so they are not in solution; they're in suspension, so they tend to settle out. And so and I know that's a pen that I've been using for a long time, so it's really not an issue for you for whatever reason. But you know, to be able to clean them out and get that pen flowing well could be difficult. But if you're not having issues, then what the heck am I talking about? So
I have cleaned it, but you know, your traditional take out the converter, flush it out. But disassembling it, I haven't done that.
well, if you don't need to, don't. I mean, I don't know if that's meant to do that with that pen. It may not be. So
I gotta check.
how long have you had it for?
This piece, I think over a year or so, if I'm not mistaken. It might be a little longer. And I'll ink it. I do, especially with these pens, I do flush them out, and if I'm not using it, we'll try to keep it, you know. But I've had it now for a couple of months, inked, and playing with it and working with it. Sometimes it will kind of have a hard start on me. What I do is I flush it out again, or I'll dip it in water and clean it up a little bit, and I'll go back. It gets finicky. It gets finicky because of the fact of that, you know, that ink, which is, I don't do Indie ink with any other pen.
I was just curious if it had an effect. Sometimes you can keep a little sponge near you with saturated with water, and you just touch the tip of the nib to that, and it usually starts writing it. There's no trick with dip pen nibs. So good.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll take you know, turn on the hose and put the nib through the hose when that happens, and that you know, the same effect. Once the water starts, it'll flush, like a little flush.
How long have you been painting?
Well, I've been since a child. I was drawing and painting. When I got out of school in '96, and that's when I got my bachelor's in Baltimore. And I did a little bit of commercial work, graphic design. I went into a family business, which my middle brother is in the jewelry and pawn. So I managed a pawn shop, and I was there quite enough years to know that that wasn't where I wanted to be. You know what I mean? You're gonna, and I was a good salesman. I mean, but I mean, it wasn't where my heart was. So as a way to get out of the pawn business, I went into teaching. Weirdly enough, someone told me, "Why don't you go into teaching?" And I said, "Wow, me, I don't know, kids, you know, can I do that?" You know, in my wildest dreams, I would have never thought. You know, if you go back in history and you tell me as a child that I would have been a teacher, I would tell you no. But I love it now. I get to put a little back, you know, and I've had a lot of kids that have come back that are now in college or finished college, and you know, that I felt like I was able to help a little bit.
Excellent.
Are most of the inks you use are permanent inks? with your drawings?
Say that again.
Are most of the inks you use, are they permanent inks or all different ranges of ink?
When I do the drawings, yes, I work mainly with the permanent inks. When I do sketching, I'll work with you know, your typical fountain. If I'm working with the sketches and the fountain pen inks, and for the rough drafts and just the sketching, I'll use regular inks. But when it's a drawing, I want the permanent inks because of the longevity of it, and also I know that, you know, they hold up a little better, you know.
Well, the detail, like it is just amazing how it looks like you're using like maybe just 2 colors in an area, but that detail that you see is just amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Let me see. I could share if you want to see. There we go. I could put this back. The fun part of this technique is here you can see it a little bit, even in dark areas. When you get here, this is
I don't see the photo.
Oh, I'm not sharing it. Sorry.
It says you've started screen sharing, but it's not come up for me yet.
Oh, might be my computer. Sometimes it's. Let me do that again. Okay. You have to bear with me when it comes.
You're fine. Take your time.
Okay. This computer is very slow, and sometimes I feel like I belong in from a previous century, because me and technology just don't get along. I guess that's why I like.
We all struggle with it.
Technology knows how to hold us hostage.
Yes, it does.
I don't struggle with technology. I'm fine with it.
Is there a way at the top of your screen you can say unshare and then try it again?
Yeah, it says stop sharing. Okay, there we go.
Stop sharing, whatever it is. Yeah, stop it.
Yeah, it's still doing the clock. Let me go.
It might be held up.
I might be held up, yeah. Okay. Let me go back. Are you guys are there?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so it's me. Any other questions?
While that's coming up, did you have any art history in your family? Were your parents artistic or other relatives?
No, weirdly enough, no. The like I said, my father was a farmer. There was no one. I think there was a distant cousin that liked photography, but not that I'm aware of. Okay, it's telling me wait for the program to respond. No. Okay, here we are.
All right, it's unshared now.
Now we see you.
Now we see me, yeah. Let me see if this might help. Oh, now I've taken out the where I was. Any other questions? I apologize.
Oh, you're fine. We all struggle with technology.
Except
I know
for
I do
Stan.
anyway.
I don't struggle with technology.
What have you tried in the way of different types of papers? Like, have you experimented with hot versus cold press papers, arches from France? What have you have any preferences?
I prefer, when I'm doing the drawings, hot press, you know, because of that smoothness, you know, because I'm always worried about that nib and then, you know, the textured paper. Textured paper with watercolors, not even, I prefer the hot press, to be honest.
Yeah, me too, for script work, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with pastels at all?
Yes, I have. I've worked with oil pastels, and I've also worked with they're very fine pastels from Europe. They have a specific name, and they're chalky, but they're, you know, when we say chalk, a lot of people refer to like the chalks that people, no, these are much finer, more expensive. And I've worked with those on specific paper. Now with those pastels, you need like a very sandy, coarse
Yes.
kind of paper.
Yes.
And if you go to my Instagram, there's a piece that I have that I haven't completed yet. It was these flower arrangements and that they're with pastels, and it has the name of the pastels and everything. It was during summertime. I did actually. It was part of a teacher's workshop, art teacher's workshop.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually did the workshop with a friend of mine who got me into the art fairs. She's very well renowned. Her name is Jackie LaRoche, and she does incredible, beautiful pastels.
Yes.
She specifically works with pastels.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's pastel pencils as well. I was just wondering if you've played around with those at all.
Not so much with the pencils. I have worked with color pencils. And color pencil, you have a variety of to play with. You know, you have your traditional color pencils, then now you have the watercolor base where you can actually come in and lighten them up and play with them. Those are fun to use too.
Yes. You know? Yes. I asked because my wife uses these things, and so yeah, she's going to love to watch this video.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you. There's a lot of great color pencils out there that you can play with. I saw an interesting, you know, it's incredible what you see now in YouTube and how much you can learn. And there was this artist where she compared your low end to your higher end pencils. And surprisingly enough, some of your low end pencils, you could do really beautiful things with them. Really beautiful. She did two pieces and you could hardly tell which was which. Yeah. Which I was very surprised.
What about the weight of the paper? I mean, is there a minimum weight? You know, obviously for me, it's like when you're writing with fountain pens, 24 pounds, 20 pounds, fine. But with some of them, when I was doing more calligraphy stuff, you know, I needed to have something that was more like cardstock or heavier paper or something like the Arches hot press. Are there like a minimum you'll work with, or?
That's a great question. It depends on the medium I'm going to use. If I'm going to do watercolor, I like a heavier, you know, and hard stock. So, you know, those heavier weight. Now the pieces that I do with the ink wash is also a heavier weight paper, and it comes treated so that you can go in with a sharp tool and you won't get the fibers. You know what I mean?
Right.
There are parts of my pieces where if I go in too, you'll see a little bit of that scratch work. And, you know, sometimes I could play it off. Sometimes I have to start again, but that's part of the process, you know? Yeah. But I personally prefer the heavier stock. I feel it's better for me and I like it. When I'm sketching, the rhino piece that I did, it wasn't a heavier stock. It was, but then again, I loved the color of, you know, it was a toned paper. So it lended itself to that ink, and then I could bring in the white ink. I also brought in a little bit of Noodler's gray, Earl Grey, if I'm not mistaken, to play off some of those tones.
Yeah.
There was a technique that was used by what they called engrossers, I guess at the time. This is in the mid 1800s to mid 1900s. The technical term today would be a calligrapher, an illuminator. and they would make use of watercolor washes, usually with Zane's gray or the other one just slipped out of my head, but they'd say they'd coat the entire paper with a real light wash of this gray watercolor, and they'd start adding more washes to it to build up different depth. It was pretty amazing what they could achieve. And I don't know if it sounds like you're doing some of that kind of work, but you know, it's almost like a lost art today.
Yeah, it's a shame. You know, speaking of that, sometimes when I look at, I don't know if you guys are familiar, if you look at some of Van Gogh's ink drawings.
Yes.
I mean, I know he must have been either using a dip pen or because you have that variation. And then when you look at it, you're like, yeah, that has to be either dip pen or very flexy fountain pen, because you get those, you know, you get that play on the line width, you know. But that's something that comes to mind when
Wow.
I was trying to open up here for you guys. I was able to come back here. I'm gonna open up. Okay, I'm gonna open up again. Here we go. Oh, this is it. Okay. I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna share the screen this time. Hopefully this time it works. Can you guys see it?
Nope, not yet.
How about now?
It says you started sharing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna show you that tone paper. And the fun thing about tone papers too is, you know, you have that play on the color of the paper, so then you could play off of that. Yeah. It should be there now, not yet, right?
Nothing yet.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Any other questions?
I've got to know, have you ever tried to do a flying squirrel?
You know, no, but
There are some in Florida, I hear. My brother lived in Florida, and we have them here. And I've got a bunch of them at my house. I feed them, and I thought, I wonder if he does a flying squirrel. I've got to see that.
that's something I could work on. I'm actually including a squirrel. It's not a flying squirrel, but I have a drawing that I started here. This is an idea if you want to see.
Yeah.
I'll start out so you get an idea. I'll start out, you see, this is the drawing. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
You have the octopus here.
Yeah.
I'll start with pencil. Then I'll come in with, this is a fountain pen with an ink. It's something I'm working on here with Larry. It has a fountain pen, has the hummingbirds. But up here, there's going to be a balloon. And then on top of here, I'm going to add a squirrel, actually. It's just a squirrel. That's sort of like the process of the madness, you know. They start with little small thumbnails. I'll get bigger. And I like to use these tracing papers because they're great for readjusting. If I need to readjust quickly and change things, kind of like cartoonist, you know, playing with animation. So I'll use that. But that will have a squirrel. It's not a flying squirrel. But I actually took some pictures of squirrels the other day for that.
If you check in the chat section, I uploaded 2 specimens from an engrosser named W.E. Dennis, where he uses either Payne's gray or Davies gray in progressive washes with some white highlights. Okay. And it might be something that would interest you. And it was amazing what they could achieve with that stuff. It's in the chat section.
I'm checking it out. My computer right now has put the chat, but it's all in blank. That's how slow it is right now. I don't know. But thank you guys. Thank you so much. This has been really great for me. All this input.
No, we appreciate it.
Where will you be going next?
Thank you.
Next is probably the next thing I'm going to do is the Miami Pen Show. I'm going to start. I have to take some time now to finish work. My last 3 shows that I had here in South Florida I had a great response. I was interviewed on one of the local stations, and my work does take time. So I'm down to a few pieces of my originals, my prints I have. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing a lot of sketching, a lot of drawing, and I've started about 2 new pieces, but they're very rough right now. One of them is about 50% in. It's this crab that I'm working on, lobster kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And there's it has sort of like this flowing. I think sometimes, you know, I know you guys have a calligrapher there. I really love that flow of the calligraphy. I can't do it, you know, I can't go there. But you know how that flow that happens, and I sort of introduced it into the lobsters.
We call it the dance of the pen, or I think what you might even be referring to is the flourishing lines and stuff, where it's just smooth and curvy, and yeah.
Yeah, the flourishing, and very hard to reproduce when you're doing it. I can show you a little bit what I mean. If you want me to get it, a second.
Yeah.
Let me get it for a second. This is a small little piece in progress, but just so that you see it, what I'm referring to.
Oh yeah.
So the glare sometimes, but here onto it's where I come in and try to, you know.
Yep, see it.
Those flourishes, kind of, you see it, you know, up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm doing it with a sharp tool, and it would be great if I could just go like you first do, but you know that. No. You know, they
What
say
you're
that's
describing is very similar to what the old master engravers would do. Back when copper plate script was, or what they call English round hand. This is back in the late 1600s up to about end of the 1800s. They basically would produce these beautiful feather quill pen written pieces, and they give it to an engraver. And they would then take a carving tool and engrave it onto a copper plate for printing. And so what that allowed them to do is to actually correct mistakes. You know, because the human hand, even with the engraver, it may not be perfect. They can go back and edit it, burnish it down, and then recarve it. But it sounds like you're doing carving work very similar to what they were doing back then. So interesting.
Yeah, you're correct. I tell people a lot of times I'm like a frustrated printer, you know, printmaker. When I was in college, and I still did a little bit out of school, I did some dry point, I did some etching, I even did with the stone.
Carving, stone carving?
No, it's a printing process where you take a stone and you grind the stone, but you're using a wax-based lithography.
Okay, right.
Lithography. But actually, there's a piece here. That one up there is an etching. One of my old etchings that I re-watercolored and stuff like that. Back in the day, totally different work. I used to do also assemblage, where I would take paintings and construct around them with found materials and things like that.
Build it up. Well, you showed the linoleum work, I think you did, and some of the block carvings. I mean, that's essentially the intaglio printing method, right? You know, I'm sure
yes. Yes, correct.
Which is what the copper plates were used for, is to basically print these things. And yeah, there's a great museum. And when I give a lecture in California, I'm trying to figure out where, I spoke at this printing museum that had incredible stuff. And I mean, they had a full-scale model, I think, of the Gutenberg press, and I mean, everything. It was just remarkable to see it. So actually, I think I post that talk I gave somewhere. Anyway, but interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, I was able, I visited Yale once, and I took my son and the family, and we got to see one of those first Gutenberg Bibles, you know, printed on, you know, they have it there, which is really incredible to see. I was trying, I apologize, to share again. I don't think it's happening.
No, it's not. I can't see anything, but
Nothing.
started something.
It says you are screen sharing, but I know it's not happening.
It could be a bandwidth issue on your side too. You know,
Could be. I sometimes have a little bit of trouble, with the internet here, even though we're in the city. And it's not like I'm out in the mountains somewhere. I don't know why it happens.
so you work in multimedia, you know, across many different types of media, right?
Yes.
If you had one thing, in other words, this might be an unfair question. It's like, what's your favorite fountain pen? But if you had one of those medias that you would, you know, continue to do, if you couldn't do any of the others, what would it be? Would it be line drawing? What would it be?
Yeah, that is a very tough question.
It's like when they ask us, what's your top 3 fountain pens?
Exactly, exactly. Wow. I mean, I would guess that if you held a gun to point, I guess I would have to side with the pen because I love the line work of it, you know. But I do enjoy painting too. I do enjoy, and they're different animals in a way, you know. With the pen, the line work is very heavily into play. With paint, it's more about volume and shadows and blending, you know, and then you got the mediums that you could throw in, you know. It's a totally different animal.
Now you know the way we feel when we're asked that question about pens, right?
You know, that would be something. Imagine if you could ask that to someone like Rembrandt, you know, because Rembrandt, you had those incredible paintings, and then you have his etchings, you know. What would he say, you know? Because, yeah, you know, or Goya. Oh, Goya is also someone that comes to mind because you think about his paintings and then his etchings as well, you know.
Yeah, I think in many respects, a question like that's completely unfair because each one of these things bring their own specialness to whatever you do. And, you know, so maybe the better question would have been the top 3 things you would do, but even that's very difficult to answer. So, no, I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's like picking your favorite son or daughter, right? Your favorite kid, you know.
Yeah, don't go there, right?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, folks, it's getting close to that time. Does anybody like to ask him any other questions? Do it now.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, guys. I wanted to thank you all for letting me here. I also wanted to extend a little discount for any of you that are interested in any of my work. My Etsy store is Abdiel Acosta Art altogether. You'll see it back in the presentation later. But if you go there, there is a promotional code. If you type in Larry, there's a 15% off on any of my pieces that are $90, or I have from 90 to 150. And there's free shipping there, also in the continental US. So, you know, that's for any of you that would want, you could take advantage of that little promo there.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's very kind.
Thank you so much for coming. We
Yeah,
really
it was
Larry.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
I'll send you a few things via Instagram private messenger that you might find interesting.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay.
Yes. By the way, I follow you on Instagram.
Oh, I just followed you back.
Okay.
We're even. Yeah.
I mean, most of you guys, you know, I've seen a lot of your stuff, and you know, I admire all the stuff you guys do. It's great to be here and talk to you guys, and you know, just, you know, that's the fun part of the hobby. You know, you meet all these interesting people, heart-minded, you know, that have the same. It's incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my good friends, good people. Thank you for coming today. We're gonna do this again. And then maybe later we can share some other stuff with the folks, what you got going down. Okay?
Definitely will. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you
my friend.
so
Take
much.
care. See y'all soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
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 Thank you.
I love a baby. I'm gonna be your man.